We're going to take a look at Father's Day. And getting a message together. You know, you try to find a correlation of good fathers, biblically, good sons, good daughters. And thought about Jacob, Isaac, Rebekah. The Bible said that Jacob obeyed his parents. Esau didn't. They disobeyed, but he obeyed his parents. I thought, wow, that's a good correlation. And how Joseph treated his father in his later years, providing for him. I thought about Abraham. Abraham was I wrote down some things here. Let me make a change here. Abraham was a great father because he was a friend of God. That enables father to already be put into a good standing, doesn't it? God made mention he will command his children and his household after him. He got this claim from God himself. 3 times in the Bible declares that he was a friend of God. Even King Jehoshaphat called Abraham God's friend forever. Abraham was a great father because he had great faith in God. Abraham was a great father because he was obedient to God. Abraham was unselfish and was willing to give his all. But that's not who I'm going to talk about this morning. I moved the scale up a little bit above Abraham and went to someone else. And I'd like for you to turn to the 12th chapter of St. John. Could have talked about Joseph, the earthly father of Christ, and just many, many others. But here's what the Bible says in the 12th chapter of St. John, beginning at the 23rd verse. I'll give you just a second on that because I'm going to go back just a little bit on this. Jesus had already made the triumphal entry into Jerusalem. This was the last few days of his earthly life. He had already been scorned by the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And now the Greeks or the Gentiles are coming to him. These philosophers looking for what life meant, what truth is. And Jesus is now talking to them. And Jesus answered them, saying, "The hour is come that the Son of Man should be glorified." Talking about his death. "Verily, verily, I say unto you, except a corn of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone. But if it die, it bringeth forth much fruit." When one denies themselves, that is the essence of relationship with God. It brings us into a glorified state with God, doesn't it? "He that loveth his life shall lose it, and he that hateth his life in this world shall keep it unto life eternal. If any man serve me, let him follow me. And where I am, there shall also my servant be. If any man serve me, him will my Father honor. The next two verses are going to be our context. Now is my soul troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour. But for this cause came I unto this hour. Jesus was saying, I have two eithers here. I can either pray the Father to save me, and who wants to die at a young age and be tortured? I can request my Father to save me and take this cup from me and resist His will, or I can ask my Father to save the world and use me as the sacrifice needed. So I submit to His will and then listen to what He says. In the 28th verse, Father, glorify Thy name. That's the title of the message. Father, glorify Thy name. Father, glorify Thy name. I am here to honor my Father. My purpose, my will, is to honor my Father. I am passionate about this will being done in honoring my Father. I want my will to submit to the will of my Father. That's why God tells us to become like little children. Because little children are desirous of making their father and their mother proud. They draw little pictures. Pictures that sometimes you can't even identify. And they give them to you with a loving heart. And when you display them on the refrigerator or in the living room or wherever you display them, their little hearts are in tune with your love. They have made you proud. Simple little things may not make anyone else proud, but it makes the Father proud. My youngest daughter this morning texted a message. She had to be in Sunday school. Does like some of you folks do. Texting during the service. You see a lot of stuff up here, see. But she texts me and does it twice, how much she loves her dad, big hearts, all of this stuff. Well, that made me feel good. And she put something on there that years ago she drew that picture. And I told her how proud I was that she had drawn that picture for me. How proud her daddy was. And that made her feel good to make her dad proud of her. How many times do we as children want to make our dads proud? Now I'm getting ready to say something here, so hold it, catch on to it. We spend a lot of time, unlike Christ here, we spend a lot of time in trying to get something from the Father. Gimme, gimme, gimme. It's all about me. It wasn't all about Jesus. He deserves it being all about Him now. But when He responded to the Father, He said, it's all about you and your will. I will be that sacrifice. We as individuals have a tendency to become self-centered when really God needs to be honored more in our lives. Jesus wanted to honor the Father even in a troubling hour. Even in an hour that He was really troubled. Not that He was going to give in to His fleshly will. He had already taken care of that. But He did it for us. He prayed because He knew that you and I would come to a point that it was more important that the Father honor us than us honoring the Father. But as we become little children, we want to make the Father proud. Now this is Father's Day, so I'm talking about fathers. And it's a day that we need to not be so preoccupied with our selfishness. Now I'm going to give us a little test here. Don't want no hands raised or anything like that. Because I want us to see how much we're really honoring the Father in just a simple little examination here this morning. When is the last time you really prayed a prayer just honoring God, your Father? Instead of, Lord, I need you to help me, need you to help someone else, Lord, I need you. How many times have we went, and you may have done it very recently, maybe in the last few moments, but how many times do we get so preoccupied with God blessing us, God affecting us, God doing something for us, that we forget that God needs to be honored? Jesus never forgot it. Even in His last troubling hours, He said, I want my Father to be glorified. I want to honor Him. I want Him to say, there's my Son hanging on the cross so that mankind can be saved. Man, what a great, compassionate, and merciful Son that I have. What a loving Son that I have, that He would give it all for mankind to be redeemed. But we have a tendency to say, I'm going to read the Bible just to get the benefit I want to get out of it. How many times have we read the Bible? This may sound strange to you, but how many times have we read the Bible and say, God, I am just honoring you. I don't know what you are going to be honored by, but I want to read something that honors you. So direct me to something that gives honor to you. There's a lot of them in the book of Psalms that just honors God. You see, we have all these petitions. We have all of these desires. We have all of these needs in our life. And we forget that God needs to be honored. But a little child, don't forget that. A little child will do something to make their dad or mama proud. I want to do whatever I can to make my dad proud. So I want to honor him. Instead of honoring ourselves, you see, we walk around a lot of times, if you don't know what I did, let me tell you what I did. Let me tell you about me. instead of let me tell you about my Father? How many times have we complained to others about our lives instead of complimented and honored God about our lives? It's another little part of that test. How many times have we dishonored God by talking about all of the things and all of the problems of our life, and we've never once said, but let me tell you how great my Father is. How wonderful He is. You see, if you read the book of Matthew again, like I've been trying to instruct us to do, the 6th, 7th, 8th chapters there, the 5th, 6th, 7th chapters of Matthew, you'll find in the 6th chapter the Lord's Prayer. And you'll also find in this 6th chapter that the word God is only mentioned 3 times. Jesus is voicing the whole chapter. God is only mentioned 3 times, but Father is mentioned 12 times. Christ is wanting to share His Father with us. Christ is introducing His Father and wants to share Him with us. And He's so proud of His Father that He mentions Him 12 times in that chapter alone. Not just God, a being somewhere in the distance, but He introduces us into a relationship through prayer of a Father, a godly Father, a Father relation in that chapter. He wants us to understand that God is more than just God, that He is a Father. And when we honor Him, when we compliment Him, when we thank Him, how many times in the last month have you just sat down with a prayer and said, thank you, God. I didn't come to ask you for anything. You've already blessed me, blessed me, blessed me. But I just come to honor you. I want you to know I appreciate you as my Father. I'm simple. I have nothing to offer. But yet your grace has overwhelmed me. It is awesome. Your grace and mercy is beyond me. And I honor you, Father, by this simple message of gratitude. You may thank Him for something very simple, for the bread on your table. Maybe something very simple for the old car you're driving, for the legs that take you down the street, for the things that God has provided. See, we get so preoccupied with what I've done that we forget what God has done, and He's really done it all. But a child still likes to honor their father. There's, I love my children to honor me. I love for my children to be proud of me and to realize that I have done everything possible to make their lives as good as I could make it. And honoring is a great thing. Jesus was facing torture and execution, but His passion was so strong about pleasing His Father that it enabled Him to go through the process. He thought about it. He could have complained about it. If anybody had a right to complain about life being unjust to him, Jesus could have done it. But no, Jesus said, I want to honor and glorify my Father. Even in death, even in torture. I had a little reading here I want to read, and then I want to say something right after this. Our children are coming in a few more minutes, but I'll let you know, Tony, when they're coming in. This is called A Father's Eyes. Jonathan's mother died when he was very young, and his father brought him up. Both of them shared a very special relationship. Jonathan loved to play football, and his father made sure that he was always there to cheer his son at every match. Even if Jonathan wasn't a part of the playing team, Jonathan, being small-sized, wasn't allowed to play in the main team. Nevertheless, he continued with his practice with full determination. Everyone thought that Jonathan would never be able to make it into the team, though somehow his determination carried him through. The coach, seeing his diligence and dedication, decided to keep him on the roster. One day during practice, the coach met him with a telegram. Jonathan was shocked to read the message contained in it. Swallowing hard, he mumbled to the coach, "My father died this morning. Will it be all right if I miss practice today?" The coach gently put his arm around his shoulder and said, "Take the rest of the week off, son, and don't even plan to come to the game on." But on the day of the game, Jonathan came. Jonathan's college team was losing bad to the rival team. The coach and the players had all lost hope when they saw Jonathan coming towards them. Jonathan ran up to the coach and pleaded him to allow him to play just one time in this game. At first, the coach wouldn't allow him to play. However, after a lot of persuasion, the coach gave in. No sooner Jonathan joined the team in the field, their scores started to improve before both the teams were then tied. However, the real cheer came during the crucial closing seconds when he intercepted a pass and ran all the way for the winning touchdown. His team members were ecstatic. The crowd came running towards him to celebrate the win. After the match, the coach went up to Jonathan, who was seated alone in the corner of the locker room, and asked, "Kid, I can't believe it. You were fantastic. Tell me what got into you. How did you do it?" He looked at the coach and with tears in his eyes said, "Well, you knew my dad died. But did you know that my dad was blind?" The young man swallowed hard and focused a smile. "Dad came to all my games, but today was the first time he could see me play, and I wanted to show him I could do it." He wanted his dad to be proud. Now I remember, and I'll tell you a little bit about me, and then we'll go get the kids. I remember when I was in school, I had a passion for baseball. I really liked baseball. Now, I was no Mickey Mantle, but I still liked baseball. And I played here at Selma. In fact, I did play with a fellow that went on to be renowned. His name was Bobby Cox. When I went to Selma, we played on the same field. Played opposite teams, but on the same field. But I remember, boy, I'd chop cotton all day and walk across town to play ball that night. I just loved to play baseball. I'd done that for 2 years. And And then I went to high school in Reedley, and I got 2 letters, varsity letters, in Reedley. In 4 years that I went, my dad came one time. Came to one of my baseball games. And I was so thrilled. But you see, it was all about me. It wasn't about him. I was so thrilled, and I was wanting to hit a home run. Hadn't hit one all year, but I was wanting to hit a home run. I usually just tried to lob it over second base. But, boy, I got up and I was wanting to hit a home run. I was up to bat 3 times, struck out 3 times. I looked around at my dad, and I'd walk off. Now, I was the catcher, so I seen my dad all the time. So I was a catcher on the team, and there my dad was right behind me. Oh, I was so proud of catching. But my batting stunk. And that night, I was just too tight, wanting to hit the home run, and couldn't hit a thing. And my dad never said a word. He never said, well, good game, son, or, you know, I enjoyed that, or whatever. Never said a word. And so, you know, I never did go on to any fame or anything like that. Never done it. But at Reedley High School, I went out for the wrestling team. Someone talked me into it, and I done pretty good. First year out, I took second in the league, and the second year out, we came down to a tie between me and another fella for the league championship, and in our weight division. Now, Bob back here is a football hero and a wrestler hero, so he obtained more than I did. But my dad never came to any one of those matches, and I remember the one match I had, there was a Portuguese kid, and he came up to me and he said, he was a nice guy, and he came up and it came down between him and I for the league championship. And it was at his school where we were having the Valley Championship, and or the league championship. Went on to the Valley too, but the league championship then. And he said, listen, my whole family's here. He said, would you take it easy on me? And I thought, well, I've wrestled this guy before. I did beat him before, but it was no picnic. This guy, we both went through our elimination process to defeat the other schools in order to get to this point. And he said, yeah, my family's here. And I looked over, and the reason I said he was a Portuguese guy, because I thought the whole nation of Portugal was there. I said, where's your family? And he said, up here on the benches. I said, really? I looked around, I had no one. Absolutely no one. From family, friends, or anybody. The only ones I had was my schoolmates there. But no one from family or friend. And I looked around, and here's all of these guys. All of these people. Well, we went to the match, and of course I could hear all of their hollerings and blah, you know, and what have you, and yeah, and all of that kind of stuff. I heard no one from my section. There's no one there. I went on and did defeat the fella and went on to the Valley. But nonetheless, what I'm saying is this here, because I know that I was mediocrity. I wasn't the greatest. But it bothered me for a long time that my dad never came. And I thought, this really bothers me. I would have made him proud. You know, I brought home the championship. That would have, wow. But Dan, it was all about me. It wasn't about him, it was about me. The only gratification I'd have got from making him proud was that it made me feel good because I made him feel proud. So it was all about me, and I finally understood that years later. When I felt God's call into the ministry, and I began to preach. Little churches, invited around to different little churches in the area. Wasn't same denomination, they were different denominations. heard that I was preaching, a young man starting out preaching, so they invited me. And I noticed something. My dad would always go with me. He played the piano in some cases. But he'd always go with me. Sit on the front pew. And I began to realize then, you know what made my dad proud was not athletes, not baseball, wrestling, and track, all of this. What made my dad proud was his son was preaching the gospel. And many times after that, I've heard people come up and say, oh, your dad's back there talking about you. Proud. I realized what real values. My dad had a real sense of value. I didn't. I thought bringing home the trophy was valuable. My dad didn't. He thought preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ was the ultimate. That's what made him proud. So when I learned that, I learned a great lesson. That my dad had a better sense of value than I did. I wonder if God has a better sense of value of our lives than we do. I wonder if we try to impress God and God just is not impressed with us and with some of our accomplishments. Is not God more impressed with our honoring Him and preaching His Word? This is what makes our Father. Jesus knew it. Tony, you can go back and get them. Jesus knew what would honor His Father. Not the miracles, not the casting out of demons, not the raising the dead, not the walking on water, not the calming the sea, but Jesus knew right here what would make His Father proud was that He was honoring His Father for the value of a life of you and I. That's what's valuable. That's what's important. Jesus knew that's what would make the Father proud. You want to make Christ proud? Relate to His Father. You want to make the Father proud? Relate to His Son. This is the true value and essence of life. Not these other accomplishments, folks. They're not what life's really about. What life's about is honoring the Father. Our Father, which art in heaven. That's what we're supposed to do. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. That's the first initial start of our prayer that Jesus instructed us in, is to give honor to the Father before you ever ask for anything. Not only honor Him, but ask that His will be done in this earth as it is in heaven. And then you can make requests. But when we go before God, honor Him in that request. Now, let me leave you with this thought, and then our children are going to be coming in, I think. You can either make your Father proud, or you can make Him grieved. And a father can make their son proud or grieved. But there's no greater pride, no greater declaration you can make than to point towards Christ. That's what made Abraham great.